On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
She didn't just ask questions. She asked the ones no one else dared, and in doing so, changed television forever. Barbara Walters was born on September 25, 1929, in Boston, Massachusetts. Growing up backstage in her father's nightclub world, she learned early how to read people before she ever read a script. Her rise to fame was steady, then historic. In the 1960s, she became a trailblazer on NBC's Today Show, turning morning television into something more intimate and human. In 1976, she shattered a glass ceiling by becoming the first woman to co-anchor a network evening news program, signing a record-breaking contract with ABC News. But her greatest legacy came through her interviews. From world leaders to Hollywood icons, Walters had a rare ability to disarm even the most guarded figures. Her annual specials and long-running role on 2020 made her the most influential interviewer of her era. Away from the camera, Barbara Walters was deeply private. A lesser-known side of her was her lifelong struggle to balance ambition with loneliness. Despite her global fame, she often admitted that career success came at a personal cost. She once said that interviews were easier than relationships, a revealing insight from someone who spent her life listening to others. Barbara Walters died on December 30th, 2022, at the age of 93. She passed away peacefully at her home in New York City, surrounded by loved ones, after a long life shaped by relentless curiosity and determination. The world reacted instantly. Newsrooms paused. Anchors who once competed with her spoke with reverence. Politicians, actors, and journalists shared memories of being interviewed by her, many recalling how nervous they were before sitting across from Barbara Walters. Tributes highlighted not just her achievements, but her courage in an industry that once told women they didn't belong at the table. Today, Barbara Walters is remembered as the architect of modern broadcast journalism. She proved that intelligence and empathy could coexist, that asking personal questions wasn't invasive if done with respect. Generations of journalists, especially women, credit her for opening doors that were once firmly closed. Her influence lives on every time an interviewer dares to go deeper. She gave the world answers. But more importantly, she taught us the power of asking the right question at the right moment. She became America's girl next door on a deserted island, and somehow stayed there forever in our hearts and memories. Dawn Wells was born on October 18, 1938, in Reno, Nevada. A bright and confident student, she was crowned Miss Nevada in 1959, and later competed in the Miss America pageant, already comfortable under the spotlight. Her rise to fame came in one defining moment. In 1964, Wells was cast as Mary Ann Summers on Gilligan's Island, a role that would shape her entire career. While the show ran for only 3 seasons, it became an endless rerun phenomenon, turning Wells into a household name. Mary Ann's warmth, kindness, and quiet strength offered a contrast to the glamorous archetypes of the era. Beyond the island, Wells appeared in stage productions, television guest roles, and films. But Mary Ann remained her most beloved achievement, a character etched into pop culture history. Off-screen, Dawn Wells was thoughtful and deeply compassionate. A lesser-known side of her life was her dedication to helping others. She was passionate about supporting organizations for the elderly and people with disabilities, often visiting fans personally and responding to letters with genuine care. She once said she was grateful that Mary Ann represented decency and optimism, values she carried into her real life. Dawn Wells died on December 30th, 2017, at the age of 79. She passed away in Los Angeles, California, from complications related to COVID-19, leaving quietly, much like the gentle character she portrayed. The reaction was immediate and heartfelt. Tributes poured in from fellow actors, fans, and generations who grew up watching Gilligan's Island in living rooms across America. Social media filled with images of Mary Ann's smile, accompanied by messages of comfort, nostalgia, and gratitude. Many noted that while the show was comedic, Dawn Wells brought a sincerity that grounded it in humanity. Today, Dawn Wells is remembered as more than a sitcom star. She represents an era of television defined by innocence, humor, and connection. Her portrayal of Mary Ann became a symbol of kindness without irony, warmth without ego. In a fast-changing world, her legacy reminds us why simple characters can have lasting power. She showed that being genuine can be unforgettable. She may have left the island long ago, but her smile still feels like home, waiting patiently in the glow of an old television screen. He was the quiet force who made every scene heavier, every silence meaningful, and every story feel unmistakably human. Tom Wilkinson was born on February 5, 1948, in Leeds, England. Raised by teacher parents, he discovered acting early, finding comfort and purpose in performance rather than the spotlight itself. His rise to fame was gradual, built on craft rather than celebrity. After years of stage work with the Royal Shakespeare Company, he broke through internationally with The Full Monty in 1997, portraying a man stripped of pride, but not dignity. Then came In the Bedroom, a devastating performance that earned him an Academy Award nomination and cemented his reputation as a master of restraint. Later roles in Michael Clayton and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind showed his rare ability to bring depth to morally complex characters, often saying more with a look than a monologue. Away from the screen, Wilkinson was intensely private. A lesser-known detail was his deep devotion to theater and teaching. He often spoke about acting as a discipline, not a path to fame, and preferred quiet study over Hollywood attention. Despite global recognition, he chose to live modestly, grounded in family and craft rather than red carpets. Tom Wilkinson died on December 30th, 2023, at the age of 75. He passed away suddenly at his home in London. The cause was reported as heart failure, a loss that came without warning and stunned the film world. The reaction was immediate and deeply respectful. Fellow actors, directors, and critics paid tribute to his integrity and generosity as a performer. Social media filled with clips of his most powerful scenes, many noting how he elevated every project he touched. Audiences revisited his films, realizing how often he had been the emotional anchor without ever demanding attention. Today, Tom Wilkinson is remembered as an actor's actor, a performer who trusted silence, who believed truth mattered more than volume. His legacy lives in characters who felt real, flawed, and profoundly human. He proved that greatness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it simply stays with you. And long after the credits roll, his presence lingers, reminding us that the strongest voices are often the quietest. He ruled through fear and spectacle, leaving behind a legacy that still divides history, memory, and the meaning of power itself. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937, in the village of Al-Auja near Tikrit, Iraq. Raised in poverty, he learned survival early, reportedly illiterate until his teenage years, driven by ambition and resentment. His rise to power was swift and ruthless. Joining the Ba'ath Party as a young man, Saddam became known for his discipline and loyalty. In 1979, he seized the presidency of Iraq, consolidating control through purges that shocked even his allies. He nationalized Iraq's oil industry, briefly turning the country into a regional economic power. But his reign would be defined by war. The Iran-Iraq War consumed nearly a decade and millions of lives. Later, the invasion of Kuwait in 1990 brought global condemnation and the Gulf War, sealing his image as a destabilizing force on the world stage. Behind the public persona was a man obsessed with image and legacy. A lesser-known detail was his fascination with literature. Saddam wrote novels and poetry, casting himself as a heroic figure, and even had his works distributed across Iraq. Statues, murals, and portraits followed, reinforcing a carefully crafted cult of personality. Saddam Hussein died on December 30th, 2006, at the age of 69. He was executed by hanging at Camp Justice in Baghdad after being convicted of crimes against humanity by an Iraqi court. His final moments were recorded in haunting detail, marking a grim end to decades of absolute rule. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some Iraqis celebrated in the streets, seeing justice served after years of oppression. Others feared the consequences, warning that his death would deepen sectarian divides. Around the world, governments issued measured statements, while historians and analysts debated whether his execution closed a chapter or ignited new instability. Today, Saddam Hussein remains one of the most controversial figures of the modern Middle East. To some, he was a brutal dictator responsible for immense suffering. To others, a symbol of resistance and national strength. His legacy is studied in classrooms, documentaries, and political debates, serving as a warning about unchecked power, personality cults, and the cost of authoritarian rule. History does not forget men like Saddam Hussein. It remembers them not for what they claimed to build, but for what they ultimately destroyed. He had a face you never forgot, and a voice that lingered, quietly haunting the strange corners of American cinema long after the screen faded to black. Jack Nance was born on December 21st, 1943, in Boston, Massachusetts. As a child, he showed little interest in fame, but he was drawn early to performance and storytelling, fascinated by characters on society's edges. His rise to recognition came through an unexpected partnership. In the early 1970s, Nance met a young filmmaker named David Lynch. Their collaboration began with Eraserhead, released in 1977, where Nance played Henry Spencer, a bewildered man trapped in a nightmarish industrial world. The film became a cult classic, and Nance's anxious, fragile performance turned him into an underground icon. He continued working with Lynch for decades, appearing in Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks, and Lost Highway. Outside of Lynch's universe, he built a steady career in character roles, known for portraying men who felt slightly out of place, quietly human, and deeply vulnerable. Away from the camera, Jack Nance was far more ordinary than his on-screen personas. A lesser-known detail was his devotion to routine. He was known to frequent the same bars and cafes, striking up conversations with strangers, often unaware that they recognized him. Acting for Nance was never about celebrity. It was about connection. Jack Nance died on December 30th, 1996, at the age of 52. He passed away in South Pasadena, California, due to complications from a subdural hematoma following a physical altercation. His death came suddenly and quietly, just days after Christmas, shocking those who knew him and the film community that admired him. The reaction was immediate and deeply personal. David Lynch described him as a dear friend and creative soulmate. Fellow actors and fans mourned a man who had helped define an entire aesthetic of American surrealism. Tributes poured in from filmmakers who credited Nance with giving emotional truth to the strangest worlds imaginable. Today, Jack Nance is remembered as the human heart of David Lynch's dreamlike cinema. His performances continue to resonate with audiences discovering Eraserhead and Twin Peaks for the first time. He proved that even in the most surreal stories, authenticity matters. Jack Nance didn't seek the spotlight, but in the shadows, he left a presence that still quietly watches us back. She was one of silent Hollywood's brightest smiles, a young star whose fame arrived early, then gently faded into history's quiet glow. Mary Bryan was born on February 18, 1906, in Corsicana, Texas. As a teenager, she won a beauty contest that unexpectedly opened the door to the film industry, changing her life forever. Her rise to fame came quickly in the 1920s, during the golden age of silent cinema. Mary Bryan became a beloved leading lady at Paramount Pictures, earning the nickname America's Sweetheart of the Silent Screen. One of her most iconic roles came in 1924, when she starred as Wendy Darling in Peter Pan, a performance that cemented her image as innocence and warmth personified. She followed this success with major roles in films like Beau Geste and The Virgin Queen, working alongside some of the biggest stars of the era. At her peak, she was one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Yet behind the camera, Mary Bryan's life was quieter than her on-screen fairy tales. A lesser-known detail was her discomfort with the rapid transition to sound films. While she did appear in early talkies, she felt increasingly out of place in the changing industry. Rather than fight to stay in the spotlight, she chose stability and privacy, stepping away from major roles while still in her 20s. Mary Bryan died on February 1, 2002, at the age of 95. She passed away at her home in Santa Monica, California, due to natural causes after a long life, far removed from Hollywood's glare. News of her passing sparked reflection rather than spectacle. Film historians, classic cinema fans, and preservationists honored her as one of the last living links to silent Hollywood. Tributes highlighted not just her fame, but her grace in leaving it behind on her own terms. Today, Mary Bryan is remembered as a symbol of Hollywood's earliest magic. Her performances continue to be studied as examples of silent-era storytelling, where emotion lived in expressions rather than words. She represents a generation of stars whose careers were brief but unforgettable, shaping cinema's foundation. Mary Bryan's life reminds us that fame does not need to last forever to matter, and that sometimes the quiet exits leave the deepest echoes. Her face became immortal in one legendary film, yet her life would quietly unravel, leaving behind one of Hollywood's most tragic what-ifs. Dorothy Comingore was born on August 24, 1913, in Los Angeles, California. Raised near the heart of the movie industry, she was a gifted pianist as a child, once considered a prodigy, before acting took over her life. Her rise to fame came swiftly and dramatically. In 1941, she delivered a haunting performance as Susan Alexander Kane in Citizen Kane, Orson Welles' groundbreaking masterpiece. The role demanded vulnerability, bitterness, and emotional collapse, and Comingore gave all of it. Critics noticed. Audiences remembered her face. Hollywood briefly believed she was destined for greatness. She followed with notable roles in films like The Big Night and Forever Amber, proving she was far more than a single film wonder. But behind the scenes, her life was deeply complicated. A lesser-known truth was her fierce independence and outspoken political beliefs. During the late 1940s, she became associated with left-leaning activism, something that would soon carry devastating consequences. When the Hollywood blacklist descended, Dorothy Comingore was subpoenaed by the House Un-American Activities Committee. She refused to cooperate. The industry turned its back on her almost overnight. Dorothy Comingore died on December 30th, 1971, at the age of 58. She passed away in Los Angeles, California. The cause was complications related to chronic alcoholism after years of isolation, financial struggle, and declining health. The reaction to her death was quiet but reflective. Film critics and historians revisited Citizen Kane, recognizing how cruelly fate had treated one of its most unforgettable performers. For many, her passing symbolized the human cost of Hollywood's darkest political era, a talent lost not to failure, but to fear. Today, Dorothy Comingore is remembered with a sense of sorrow and respect. Her performance in Citizen Kane remains one of the most emotionally raw portrayals in film history. She stands as a reminder of how quickly fame can vanish and how courage can come at an unbearable price. Her story is now taught not just as cinema history, but as a cautionary tale. Dorothy Comingore did not disappear from history because truth, like great art, always finds a way back into the light. He was called a holy man, a madman, and a monster, but his death would become one of history's most chilling legends. Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin was born on January 21, 1869, in the small Siberian village of Pokrovskoye, Russia. Raised as a peasant, he was illiterate for much of his youth and known for strange visions and religious obsessions. Rasputin's rise to power was as unlikely as it was explosive. Traveling across Russia as a wandering mystic, he gained a reputation as a healer and spiritual guide. His life changed forever when he was introduced to Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra. Their son, Alexei, suffered from hemophilia, and Rasputin appeared to ease the boy's pain when doctors could not. Whether by prayer, hypnosis, or coincidence, the results were undeniable to the royal family. Soon Rasputin became a trusted advisor, influencing court decisions and political appointments, earning both power and enemies. Behind closed doors, Rasputin lived a life full of contradiction. A lesser-known detail is that he believed salvation came through sin, claiming spiritual purification required indulgence. This belief fueled his scandalous behavior, heavy drinking, and rumored affairs. To the Russian elite, he became a symbol of corruption. To others, a dangerous manipulator hiding behind faith. Grigory Rasputin died on December 30th, 1916, at the age of 47. He was murdered in St. Petersburg, Russia. According to historical accounts, he was poisoned, shot multiple times, beaten, and finally thrown into the icy Neva River, where he ultimately drowned. His death was carried out by nobles who believed killing him would save Russia and the monarchy. The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. News of his assassination spread rapidly, shocking the public and shaking the royal court. Yet removing Rasputin did not save the Romanovs. Within 2 years, the Russian Revolution would destroy the monarchy entirely, making his death feel hauntingly futile. Today, Rasputin's legacy lives somewhere between myth and reality. Songs, films, books, and legends have turned him into an almost supernatural figure. He is remembered as a warning about unchecked influence, blind faith, and political decay. Whether saint or sinner, his presence marked the beginning of the end for Imperial Russia. Grigory Rasputin did not just die that night, he became immortal, forever drifting through history like a shadow that refuses to disappear.